New York Islanders general manager Lou Lamoriello came out earlier this week telling us that two of his three restricted free agents would be signed in the coming days. Well, two of them have been signed, and not necessarily the ones that we thought would be signed. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe as we take a look at the Islanders re-signing RFA's Dal Colle. So the New York Islanders signed a pair of contracts today as they bring in forward Dal Colle and forward Josh Ho-Sang. Now, both of these players have had interesting careers, to say the least. Maybe bust, but they're giving one more shot, or sometimes 2-year shots, for some of these players. So taking a look at Dal Colle, he signs a 2-year contract worth $700,000. So a pretty good contract there. Very cheap, I must say. I would have expected a little bit more than that, but with Lou Lamoriello, you're not going to get much, especially in the restricted free agent market. So they do sign Dal Colle, a former 5th overall pick a few years back. Really hasn't lived up to the potential that we saw in him. We know in that draft year, he won the Canadian World Junior or the Canadian World Cup or whatever it is with the Canadian Hockey League in the juniors with the Oshawa Generals. He was a big focal point on that team. He had an unbelievable season. But since then, his time in the NHL and the American Hockey League, he's had his ups and downs. This year, he had a tough season in the American Hockey League, but he eventually got up into the NHL. He was able to turn things around, and he made the NHL. And Barry Trotz seems to like Dal Colle. He's a bigger player. He may never have that scoring touch that we saw in Oshawa, but he's still going to be an unbelievable player. And at 23 years old, there's still a lot of potential left in this kid. He's still young enough. He still has the potential to become a really big piece of this Islanders team. And especially with the lack of forwards that they have, he's definitely a very sought-after piece in the Islanders organization. No reason to let him go. Now, the more controversial one. So, Josh Ho-Sang. So, Josh Ho-Sang signs a 1-year contract for around $875,000. So, again, a really cheap deal. But he's only on a 1-year compared to Dal Colle's 2. So, what is that saying? Well, they seem to have a little bit more trust in what they have in Dal Colle. They kind of know what he is, a bottom 6 player. He may find a way getting into the top 6 if he has a really good camp, but he's going to have some tough competition there. Ho-Sang being one of those players. So Ho-Sang really is going to be interesting. He's got to be in the NHL this year, I would think. This is his last shot. Now, he is another former first-round pick, picked around the same time as Matthew Barzal in the mid-20s. The Islanders traded for that pick a couple of years back. Garth Snow was notorious for trading up to acquire first-round draft picks for players that he liked, Matt Barzal being one, and Josh Ho-Sang being another. They're obviously very different players looking back now, but they were drafted around the same time. Now, Josh Ho-Sang had the skill level when he was brought into when he was up to be in the NHL draft. The ceiling was, extremely high on Ho-Sang. He had a ton of potential. He had really good raw skill, but he had some issues, and some of them being off the ice, some attitude issues here and there, lack of playing as, a team game, basically saying he's not a very good defensive player, good two-way player. So when Ho-Sang came in, the Islanders knew they were already taking a gamble. He had the skill, but there were some things that were a little bit more behind the scenes that you may have problems with. Now, it obviously didn't help that he missed the second day or the first day of training camp. He slept in late. Garth Snow sent him right back to the Niagara Ice Dogs after that incident. This past season, he showed up late to the second day of practices under Barry Trotz. That definitely didn't sit well with management. So Ho-Sang's starting to grow a resume of having a couple of issues here and there. He said some things over the years about management, whether it was with Garth Snow, most recently with Lou Lamoriello. Since then, things have been pretty quiet since January, December, I think he said some things about not playing in the NHL. Um, Unfortunately, he hasn't shown the numbers to really warrant him being in the NHL. He has 2 points in 10 games last season with the New York Islanders, so he did get a chance, but the Islanders just sent him back for some reason, and you wonder if it has anything to do with, maybe, like I said, some attitude issues that maybe we're not hearing about, and especially under Lou Lamoriello, those things aren't going to get out too easily. Dal Colle had 7 points in 28 games for the New York Islanders last year, so he got almost 3 times the amount of playing time over Josh Ho-Sang, who spent most of the year in the American Hockey League. So Dal Colle really didn't put up the numbers either, really. I mean, there was just so much hype around these players when they were brought in, when they were drafted, and they really have, unfortunately, they're one of the reasons that former general manager Garth Snow was ousted, because these are, high draft picks that right now, dare I say, are starting to look like busts. They're 23 years old, both of them, and they really have not shown the potential that we are hoping we would see from them on draft day. So, overall, Ho-Sang in his NHL career has 24 points in 53 games. He had that time with Doug Weight as the coach. It seemed like he was working well on that roster. To end the season, they ended up missing the playoffs. That was the year John Tavares left. So, since then, things have definitely tailed off for Ho-Sang, and you're just left asking the question, what has happened? And we'd love to know what's going on in the room. We know Lou Lamoriello does not leak out much information. Now that leaves us to the next question. So the Islanders signed 2 of their 3 restricted free agents. Well, that means there's still 1 available, and I'm actually shocked at the fact that this is the guy that they left off and is not being re-signed right now, is Anthony Beauvillier, who's been with the Islanders for a couple of years now. Garth Snow drafted him early in the first round, again, another early first-round pick, and he's really not fitting in well in the top 6 for the New York Islanders. So the Islanders are now notorious for having Dal Colle, who's a good, mediocre second liner, more of a third line player. Josh Ho-Sang has shown he really struggles to play in the NHL, let alone, playing in the top lines for the New York Islanders. So, and Anthony Beauvillier himself found himself on the third line a lot of last season with Leo Komarov and Valtteri Filppula. So it just leaves you asking the question, what is going on with Beauvillier now? Because you have Dal Colle, he's probably going to make the roster. I would have to think this is Ho-Sang getting his shot in the NHL, and if he blows it in training camp or he blows it in wherever, he's just going to be waived, and the Islanders are rid of him and done. At that point, it's not even worth keeping, and I think Lou Lamoriello knows that, and he's taking a safe bet here with Ho-Sang. So Beauvillier still needs a contract for the Islanders. Hopefully that comes in the next couple of weeks before training camp. Hopefully that gets finished. But, the Islanders, you could tell that Lou Lamoriello is doing these contracts because they're really cheap. These are like basically a little bit above entry-level contracts for these guys. So it's actually pretty amazing. But let me know what you guys think of the New York Islanders re-signing Dal Colle and Josh Ho-Sang. And let me know what you guys think is going to happen with Anthony Beauvillier. What's going on? Do you have any insight on what's going on with him? I really, not much gets out of Lou Lamoriello. So it's interesting that he said earlier this week that the Islanders would indeed be signing 2 of their 3 restricted free agents. We all assumed Ho-Sang would be the scapegoat and they would wait on Ho-Sang. But apparently Ho-Sang wants to come back. So thank you for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Check out our Instagram as well, @GoalLineHockey. And thank you for watching, and have a good day.